I would normally be first in the queue when it comes to poking fun at world leaders' body language. But this, I'm afraid to say, is shocking body language and very unfunny body language. Initially, I thought it had to be AI, but then we know it's not. I think what I find even more shocking than even what I was seeing is the attempt to explain it by saying that it was play. It was just play. It was a couple letting off steam. And that worries me even more because it's trying to normalize something that we should be shocked by. We quite rightly should be shocked by it. And it absolutely shouldn't matter who's doing it to who. That, this is a husband and wife. It's the same will apply. That's not good natural behavior. We can see Macron, who very much the alpha male leader with his body language, preparing to get off the plane. The door opens and anybody looking at him, and his wife obviously more than anybody else would know that he's getting into professional mode. He's about to step out in Vietnam on the world stage, and he's kind of pumped up accordingly. He seems to talk to his wife at the side, who we can't see at this point, but then shockingly, her hand comes out and presses against his face, the nose as well. And if anybody wants to try this on themselves, you'll feel how vulnerable it makes you feel. Pushes it to the point where he reels sideways, so it's not a little stroke or anything like that. And then there's even a final extra push at the end that I think technically could have toppled him over. This is not playing. It certainly wouldn't be playing at work or anywhere. It's entirely inappropriate. We can see Macron, his expression suddenly changes to a micro gesture of shock before he turns around and seems to have a conversation with his wife. There's a break in the film where we can see him going to the other side of the door. But then when we see them emerging, obviously there's this attempt to sort of do a glow up. Nothing just happened. And he does a little wave before this happens, as though this is fine, nothing to see here. But then when they come out together formally, he does put his hand out and seems to extend it, either to hold her hand or maybe to help her down the steps or to usher her first. But she ignores him. And we get both of them coming down, holding the opposite handrail, making their way down. So it looks very, I would say, frosty, but I would still say that Macron looks rather shocked. And we can see later on, if we look at a close-up of his hand, we can see that it's balled into a fist. The knuckles look white. So clearly a lot of pent-up tension there as a result, quite rightly. I don't get the squabbling and joking because, I mean, these are veterans of being on the world stage. They know that when the plane lands, if they did want to have a little bit of fun and laughter, not pushing a face, but fun and laughter, they would do it before they got to the plane door. Macron does like to look very, very serious, quite powerful, and more so since Trump, etc. This is very important for him to look controlling and powerful. So both of them would know that this is not the time to be joking and laughing anyway. But again, I do have to go back to my point. If I saw somebody do that to somebody in the street, anybody, I would probably feel I should intervene. So no, I really am not getting the fact that they were having a laugh. It would not be the place anyway to have a laugh. We know that the world leaders and their wives, they've got quite set routines that they do with their body language. It is very professional. You might get maybe during a visit, they might show a laugh about something, but not on things like arrivals. No, this is important stuff where they have to work at a very high level. So I'm really not getting the fact that this was just a little whatever that went on. No, not there. Not how it would happen. And to be honest, wherever that happened, it would be inappropriate. The fact that he clearly wants to do a bit of a glow up, let's all go back to pretending that nothing happened. And he looks as though he needs to prove to the world that nothing happened apart from her. So despite the fact that he was the one that got the shove, he puts his arm out, and presumably that is the offer to her that now we need to smile and wave and pretend, you know, obviously assuming that the world and the public are stupid enough to say, oh no, they're smiling now. That was obviously, my eyes were wrong. You know, I saw something that didn't exist, smoke and mirrors. So it looks very much as though he wants to put on that face and do a performative body language for the public, as it should be, and pretend nothing's happened. But to then still get ignored and repelled by her, you would have thought, I mean, I can't even say if I'd the one that done that gesture, because never in a million years would I do it. But you'd think that she would leap at any chance to prove that, oh no, I'm fine, look, I'm sweet, I'm nice, you know, nothing happened. But no, she's still ignoring his overture at this point, which is a very bad sign, really, very bad sign. It implies that she thought that maybe she was in the right. She still looks annoyed. She does hide her face under her hair, but you know, you would almost expect a kind of a little eye roll of apology, something. Hold your husband's arm, hold his hand, you know, take any olive branch that is put out to you, because at the moment this is looking very bad, and they have a lot of very big visits to do, including the royal visit to the UK. And I don't think that's appropriate to have seen before that happens. And people will clearly be keeping a very close eye on their body language in future. If a relationship is the type where that is happening normally, that would be extremely shocking and disturbing, because it's not right. It's not right. To happen in public as well, it's almost showing a level of not caring that much. So I would see it as extremely disturbing, an extremely disturbing sign. But even if, and I'm sure we will hear different versions, even if somebody will say it was the heat of the moment, it was a one-off, it's a wrong one-off, done alone by itself and never repeated and never happened before. It's still wrong. I can, if I was socializing down the pub with other people that I knew, even people that we knew really well, if one of them went and did that to their partner, they'd get taken outside very quickly and spoken to, and possibly asked not to come back in again. You know, it's that kind of level of, I'm sorry, this should never be seen as appropriate. I honestly, it worries me more that anybody would try and normalize it and pretend that, no, this is just a marriage, you know, this is what, no, it's not. And I don't want anybody watching to be sold that story, because no, that's not normal body language behavior in any relationship. I think the problem he's got is the fact that we all saw it. Now, there is no context where a gesture like that from one partner to another is ever appropriate. And I don't think that there's any way that we cannot be judgmental on it. I mean, if it was something that, you know, you get things like, I don't know, with some world leaders, they go to hold their wife's hand, they flick their hand away. But, you know, that kind of thing, you can think, well, maybe there was some context there. It's not that big a deal. Let's move on and not focus on it. But of course we're going to focus on this, because there is no context that makes it okay. And we all saw it. So I don't quite know what it is that we're supposed to be thinking, but it's not a good gesture to see. You know, I can't even bring it down a bit. You know, if the push had been on the shoulder or something, it still wouldn't be right. But that, I'm sorry, there's no context that works in, I'm afraid, at all. I'm pretty sure that over the next few days, we're going to see a superhuman effort to try and look like the sweetest, most loving couple. And I'm sure that we're going to see Brigitte looking a lot more submissive, and make him look a lot more dominant, you know. But I will forever hold that picture in my mind, because I'm afraid it is that shocking. And for me, there's no amount of repair work that you can do, because that's not how it works. It really isn't how it works. I'm sorry, that needs to be judged just on that one viewing. and not try and fool people into thinking because we're smiling now, it's okay. I find it very worrying, as well as disturbing.